Rick, I usually would not use you to discuss McDonald's or even a campaign stop at McDonald's. But, I mean, you're an expert in foreign policy, national security, intelligence, but you're also a campaign guy and a communications expert, too. So Donald Trump goes to the McDonald's, okay? And it's crazy, but we're still actually talking about this now 2.5 days later. And the media is still just, like, breaking down. I mean, we saw MSNBC is like, what is he thinking? What has he lost his mind? I mean, they're trying to spin it that way. But in reality, it's a straight-on dig against Kamala Harris, who says she worked there, but it's not in her book. And as Snopes and all those places have gone through, they can't find anyone that can confirm she ever told them she worked at a McDonald's even once. I mean, so again, kind of bizarre that you talk about it now in your life story, but you don't include it in the book about your life story and going to Howard and trying to figure out how to pay for going to school there. And it's nowhere to be found that you took a job even temporarily at McDonald's until you run for president of the United States, halfway through an election year. But the media on the left, Rick, we're seeing these breakdowns. What's Donald Trump thinking? Is the campaign losing its mind? Is he losing his mind? And I'm like, no, Donald Trump's doing exactly what you do 2 weeks out while people are already starting to vote. You do retail politics. At this point, if you're Harris and you're having to sit down for all these long interviews now and CNN town halls, there may be a problem with voters who don't understand what you actually stand for.
Yeah, look, two major points. One, let's be super clear. Kamala Harris did not work at McDonald's. And two, the propaganda media in Washington, D.C. knows she didn't work at McDonald's, but they're unwilling to say it because we have 2 weeks left. This is a scandal. This is so simple for the American people to see. When you claim you worked at McDonald's when you're the sitting vice president, you say, I worked at McDonald's a long time ago. What you're trying to say is, I'm everyman, I'm relatable, I'm authentic. And we know she's a phony. She's literally a phony. She didn't work at McDonald's. If she worked at McDonald's, Jordan, we would have seen so many people who came forward to say she's the best fry cook. She's the best at, doing orders. Her math skills were amazing at the teller. I mean, somebody would come out and just be gushing about how she was employee of the month. The fact is they have no photos. Her family is not trying to confirm it. They won't even tell us which McDonald's, because if they told us which McDonald's, then we could go back to the owner and say, let's see your records. The IRS knows if she worked at McDonald's, unless she, somehow is faking it, then they don't have any record. The reality is the media are completely disinterested in this very simple story. Did Kamala work at McDonald's, or is she lying?
Well, Rick, I mean, I don't mean to fact check you live on air here, but I did see a tweet from your account that confirmed 51 former intelligence officials say Kamala worked at McDonald's. And knowing the way our media works, I know, obviously, we understand satire, us conservatives, but those in the media may take that story and run with it because they've run with stories like that before.
Yeah, look, I tweeted that out. Obviously, anybody who knows me, I like a good joke. I'm all about humor. I love to watch comedians. And I tweeted that out as a joke, and boy, has it gone viral. Everybody loves it and is sending it back to me saying this is fantastic. But obviously, it's a play on the fact that 3 weeks before the 2020 election, 51 former intelligence officials said, don't look at that Hunter Biden laptop. Whatever is in there is Russian disinformation. And we knew then that was not true. And the media just ignored it. And then years later, it came forward that, oh, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here pointing to the fact that the Bidens have really terrible business dealings with Chinese officials. And we should have looked at it 3 weeks before the 2020 election. And now we've got a very simple story. Kamala Harris is claiming she worked at McDonald's. Let's investigate. I think we should stay on this story. What McDonald's? Who did you work with? No one in America or no one in Canada can come forward and say, hey, I worked with Kamala and here are the dates and here's a photo.
I do want to follow up because I think there will be a lot of stories in history books about this election. There's been 2 assassination attempts. There's been a coup within one party to replace their nominee. But I think one of the stories that is just bubbling up that I think will be written about is the failure of the media and this kind of being the worst moment, kind of the end of legacy media's full impact. Even though we've gone through the pandemic years, the 2016 election, all of those things, I think pale in comparison. And one of the worst symptoms I think I'm seeing of that right now is surrounded around this McDonald story, as well as President Trump going to the Steelers game. The legacy media is having to now tell us, they think that we need to know President Trump wasn't actually an employee this weekend at McDonald's. There are multiple legacy media that are making sure that's reiterated. He was not an employee, because Americans are too dumb, apparently, to figure that out, as well as Newsweek tweeting out that President Trump, in a likely AI-generated image, was shared from his Truth Social account of him in a Steelers uniform. Because, once again, the American people can't be trusted to know that President Trump didn't suit up and go play football on Monday at the Steelers game he just attended. I think this is the worst symptom of it, that the media as we know it is dead, and we're just kind of living in this afterglow period where they still exist, but not really.
You remember the scene in Hunger Games when the Capitol, the Capitol, which was a symbol of Washington, D.C., clearly, was completely surrounded by media and doing their own thing and believing their stories. And then everybody else out in the rest of the country were laughing at them and watching that, they had this spectacle circus going on. That's exactly what's happening in Washington, D.C. They all don't know in the newsrooms of Washington, D.C. that the rest of America are laughing at them. They have no credibility. They sit in their little newsrooms and believe each other, and they don't think that we've noticed that they're not going after the McDonald story, or they're literally covering up everything for Kamala and Joe, and they're attacking Donald Trump nonstop. Look, CNN is unwatchable. It's literally unwatchable when you just go through segment after segment is all Democrats and Trump haters. Once in a while, they'll put in like a rhino in there to talk, but it's really atrocious. And I think that we're going to have a come to Jesus. We're going to have to recognize that when you have propaganda media regurgitating the message points of the ruling party, that's an element of fascism. First and second generation Americans see this clearly. They left that, and now they're experiencing it here in America.
I mean, because you were traveling so much, we saw your travel schedule just the next few days, and again, hitting a lot of battleground states. I was in West Virginia last week, right on the border of Pennsylvania, and kind of the activists there who had me speak at their Lincoln Day dinner, they have two kind of things that they're working on there. Big turnout in West Virginia for a big Trump victory. They want to add a lot of votes to the popular vote as well. They want to elect a lot of statewide Republicans and local Republicans throughout the state of West Virginia. And then a lot of that state on the eastern side is saying, you know what, once we get that done, and you know what, I can early vote and things like that, I'm going to go and spend some time in Pennsylvania as well to make sure and volunteer there, which sometimes is just a few minutes drive to get into Pennsylvania. So we know that activists, I've seen it, are pumped up about not just winning in their own states, but going and wherever they need to go to ensure other victories that will either be for Donald Trump and a down ballot, or for individuals who will help Donald Trump in Washington. What are you seeing right now in the swing states? What can you tell our audience? Where should they be looking? Because they're listening from all over the country. They may not be living in one, and maybe they're going to find out today that they are living in one that maybe wasn't. I know that Nebraska, that Senate race is now on the radar a lot differently than it was 2 weeks ago. In places like that, Texas with Ted Cruz, but also where President Trump is going to be heading and where you're heading.
Look, so I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yesterday, I was in Michigan. I go back to Michigan and Wisconsin this week. The battlegrounds of Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, and Wisconsin. I would add Arizona and Nevada to those. We need people there. If you live in one of those states, go door knocking, go help us elect Donald Trump. Incredibly.
It's easy to figure out if you're in a state that is a battleground because you turn on the TV. I mean, just see. If you're getting the ads, stay right where you are. get your vote in, early vote in person, and then go volunteer. Go volunteer for one of the campaigns, a local campaign, statewide campaign, the presidential campaign. Get out the vote. This is what we got to do the next 2 weeks. Turn out the early vote and then turn out election day voting. Make sure people know the rules. Make sure they know when the last day is to register in states. It's different everywhere.